George Zimmerman rushed to the rescue of a man trapped in his truck that had rolled over on a Florida highway last week. It is the first public sighting since a jury acquitted him in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. The site of that rescue is less than a mile from where Zimmerman killed Martin.
All right, welcome, folks, to the Steve Malzberg Show, Tuesday edition. We spoke about this yesterday, the news that George Zimmerman had stopped his vehicle, or a vehicle he was driving in with a friend, and helped rescue a family from a vehicle that was turned over and was smoking. He reportedly took his fire extinguisher out of his vehicle to do it and left as soon as the cops came there and said he was not a witness to the accident and he was on his way. Joining us now to talk about this and some more issues related to this this whole, of course, George Zimmerman aftermath of the trial is the fine defense attorney, Mark O'Mara. Hello, Mark. How are you, sir?
Hey, great, Steve. Good afternoon. Good chatting with you again.
Good. Thank you very much for doing it. All right, so you didn't even find out about this. I mean, it's not like George Zimmerman called you up and told you that this happened. You didn't find out about this until significant time had elapsed after the event, correct?
That's correct. We actually found out about it yesterday. Somehow the information got out from the accident report that he was there. I guess some of the people on scene, including the family, recognized him, and word sort of got out and finally got back to me, but no, George never took the credit for it himself at all.
That's amazing. So he helped rescue them, and then he went on his way. And two things. One, not that it matters, but I'm just curious. Did he tell you, do we know if the family was minority or white or anything?
We found out now since I think they are Caucasian. I think they're white. Okay. But, not that it matters.
No, I know, but everybody's asking the question, and I haven't seen it anywhere. Not that it matters. And even if they were African American, it wouldn't quell the critics naturally. So, but I just wanted to ask. And also, sure. I'm assuming that was over a week ago, and I don't even want to know. But I love these liberal talk show hosts and talk shows on CNN. They're all asking, well, he's still around? Where is he? I mean, I don't want to know where he is. And for God's sake, nobody should know where he is. But I assume that was, a couple of days after the trial and circumstances are different now.
Yeah, it was. It was a few days after. He was just trying to relax a couple of days right after the event of the acquittal and trying to decide what to do. Amazing, again, that he would just be driving down the road and see something like that happen. And I just wish people would look at this and say that this is the real George Zimmerman, because this is so in line with everything else that we know about George before February 26th of last year, from the mentoring and all that other stuff, that the stories that have made it, and this is just who he is.
Yeah, and of course, the opposition is who they are. I heard one African-American pastor on a CNN report earlier today question whether or not it was really George Zimmerman, that it's just kind of publicity being put out there. So that's never going to stop either.
Well, I guess the only way I can say it is it was the same George Zimmerman who was acquitted.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of that, we had Alberto Gonzales, former U.S. Attorney General, on the show yesterday, Mark, and he said a lot of things. And one of the things he said was, given the facts as they were presented, he is of the firm belief that no matter who was on top of George Zimmerman, breaking his nose and beating his head into the ground, no matter what color that person would have been, they would have gotten shot. Your reaction to that?
Absolutely true. I mean, the reality is we can make believe that it's a racial event, although every individual fact and every fact in some suggests that George was not a person who acted with racial bias. So then we look at the reality of the facts that did happen that night, and it could have been any color skin on either of the two people. And if you go through what George Zimmerman went through, then the shooting was an appropriate, necessary, though very unfortunate reaction to the violence that was being perpetrated upon him. It had nothing to do with the skin color.
No, not at all. And in fact, Mark, I have not heard this mentioned anywhere because it would not fit in with the agenda that the media has. But if there was an interview with an alternate juror who I believe he was identified as a black male. It was a Fox interview from Florida, in other words, a local affiliate down there, and they ran it on Fox News Channel as well. But nobody has alluded to the fact that not only did the half black, half Hispanic woman on the jury go along with the verdict, but this black male alternate said he agreed with the verdict. So again, there's plenty of evidence here to make this, even the verdict, into non-racial, but the media keeps going in the opposite direction.
Well, yes, Steve, let me clear one thing up. If it was actually an alternate juror, there were people on the panel, including a black male who was in the front of the panel, but there was an alternate. He was a white male. So if it was the white male alternate who actually sat through the whole trial, then he wasn't black, he was white. There were other black potential jurors. So just to clear that
Okay,
up.
well, I don't know, because the article I read that came with the video identified him as a black male alternate. So I don't know. But so it might have been another black male who wasn't an alternate but was there for the trial.
Correct. Yeah.
Let me ask you, when I had you on a week ago, or a little more than a week ago, you said that 1 to 10, because I forced you into that, you gave a 1 the chance that there'd be civil rights charges brought against George Zimmerman. How concerned are you that they took the gun and, quote-unquote, all the evidence and sent it to the FBI or the Justice Department? I mean, is that normal procedure, or is that something that concerns you?
Well, no, I think it's fairly normal that if the FBI or DOJ is going to do an investigation, that they take control of the evidence just so they're in charge of it. And I'm okay with that. That doesn't change my percentage belief as to what may happen here. And the reason why I say that is not, hubris or ego. It's just that the FBI last year has already done an investigation where they talked about 40 people. And having completed that investigation, they came back with no evidence of racism, actually more evidence of non-racism. So that's why I believe that I almost welcome another review of the evidence, because all it's going to do is further exonerate George and his actions.
All right, we're talking to Mark O'Mara here on the Steve Malzberg Show, of course, defense attorney for George Zimmerman and fine defense attorney in general. Let me ask you a couple of questions here before we get to Barack Obama. Bill Whittle, who does work for PJ Media and for National Review, he did a video. It's now got almost 500,000 hits, and it's growing in leaps and bounds. And I got to tell you, it's the first time I've heard. I remember the prosecutor saying, when holding up the plastic bag with the jar of liquid in it, saying iced tea or watermelon drink, whatever it is. And it struck me. I said to myself at the time, what's he talking about, watermelon drink? Is it true, or is it not true, however, if I want to phrase it as an attorney, that this was not iced tea at all, but was Arizona watermelon fruit juice cocktail? And is it also not true, and please, if I'm wrong, tell me, that Skittles and this drink, Arizona watermelon fruit juice, mixed with cough medicine, is the concoction or the ingredients for something called lean, which is a drink that gets you high, which Trayvon Martin had tweeted about. Is all that true?
Yes, that's all mostly true. If you look on, if you just do a Google search for purple lean or lean drink or lean drank, it is sort of an urban kind of drug. It's known in some circles as poor man's ecstasy or something like that. And yes, the main ingredients are watermelon, Arizona watermelon juice, a hard candy, whether that's Jolly Ranchers or Skittles or some other hard candy for the sweetness, and then some type of either codeine tablets if you can get them, or Quercetin D, Robitussin DM, anything with a D in it, because that stands for decongestant, and that has the active ingredient.
Is it also not true then, and I feel like I'm cross-examining you, so bear with me, is it also not true that the autopsy report showed some kind of liver, I won't say psoriasis of the liver, maybe that is the appropriate term, but liver damage consistent with use of this kind of thing, and that the result of using this kind of concoction or cocktail or lean drink is paranoia and what's the other one? And aggressiveness.
Well, as the first one, I have heard other people opine that that type of liver abnormality could come from this, but we never looked into it.
But he had a liver. But he had a liver abnormality. You're saying he did.
It was identified.
Okay,
yes.
and as for the paranoia and the aggressiveness.
If you look at lean on Google, you're going to find out that those are some of the characteristics of people who use it, because it's an intoxicant, and it's a fairly significant one when used in that.
Why was this not brought out in court? Any particular reason? Was it not relevant? Would the judge not allow it in? Did you want to bring it in?
We had a lot of information that we had gotten off of the phone. The court reviewed a certain amount of that and had decided not to allow us to get into some of the information that I think was potentially more relevant, that talking about his fighting and whatnot. So, we weren't winning that battle, even though it was more relevant, so we sort of stopped at that point.
Okay, I got now one more. This myth that he was told to stay in the car, still repeated. I heard Wolf Blitzer say it a few days ago. He was told not to get out of the car. Is that not just a bald-faced lie that could be remedied by simply listening to that tape?
Yeah, and I don't know why. It's almost, because, like you say, it's almost a myth at this point because it has no factual basis, but everyone continues to believe it. It's very clear if you listen to the tape, and this is not me litigating. I've already won the case, but the reality is you've listened to the tape. On two separate occasions, the dispatcher says, "What is he doing now?"
Right,
Then
which prompted him to follow him, as the witness alluded to when the operator alluded to when you questioned him, right?
Yeah, and then he says, "Is he running? Which way is he going?" You then hear the door open, so George is now out of it. 9 to 10 seconds later, listen to the tape yourself, don't believe me. 9 to 10 seconds later,
Are you following him? Yes, we don't need you to do that. Okay. Yep.
Okay, and then he stops, and there's no other evidence for any following. Now, supposedly, the prosecutor, after the case, this never came up in the trial, but now the prosecutor is saying that he went back to his car and then went back to search him down and had his gun in his hand the whole time. Well, it might be great for a fantasy fairy tale, but we're supposed to be locked in as lawyers to facts we can prove.
Yeah, and please, if you go on with Pierce Morgan, especially him, I mean, he's so duplicitous. He'll be respectful to your face and even might say he agrees with the verdict, and then then rabble rouse to the extreme with the next guest. So I mean, I know you know that, but tell him please start addressing this myth, because I've ended relationships with liberal guests that I used to have as a regular guests on this show because they wouldn't take back this lie about being told not to get out of the car. And I said, "Why are you saying that? It's a lie." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." So please, I don't want to tell you what to do, but please try to dispel, because it has become an urban legend. One final thing, and thank you for your time, Mark. The president, what was your reaction to the president going out there and saying what he said?
Well, if you look at the sound bites, I didn't like that he said, 35 years ago, I could have been Trayvon, because it's sort of ignoring a lot of the information that you and I have just talked about that we know to be out there. But if you do listen to the whole 20 minutes of it, if what he's saying is, let's talk, then I'm okay with that. I've said that for a year. We do need to talk about a couple of things, no question about it. But my frustration is those comments can be seen to more divide us rather than truly, requesting and having a conversation. Because if we try and deal with somebody having a conversation where you have to admit that George Zimmerman acted so inappropriately and that Trayvon Martin is this high up on a pedestal, those people who don't believe it, those who look at the facts, will never want to take part in that conversation.
I couldn't agree.
You have to have the conversation.
I couldn't agree with you more. And one final thing, civil suit, I maintain it's not going to happen, because everything we've talked about with the Ice-T, all his cell phone records, everything, the arrests or the kicking out of school, that would all come out, and George Zimmerman really doesn't have enough money to make it worthwhile them going after him with all that coming out. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see that happening. And like you say, more information will come out in the civil case. And plus, he has immunity under the statute,
right,
which we have not asserted yet, but we can assert. And if that's true, we get attorney's fees and costs in having to counter that lawsuit, so they may be on the hook for that.
Mark, thank you really so much, and I hope we speak again. Thank you.
Sounds great, Steve.
Take care. Mark